Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a massive transformation that's happening right now in the global economy. You see, for centuries, literally trillions of dollars in international trade have been bottlenecked by one agonizingly frustrating thing: physical paper. But thankfully, that is rapidly changing. In fact, digital infrastructure is quickly becoming just as critical to global trade as physical shipping ports themselves. In this explainer, we're going to explore Sri Lanka's high-stakes transition from a slow, paper-based trade system to a fully digital one, looking specifically at their Electronic Bill of Lading, or eBL pilot program. It's a fascinating blueprint for modernizing trade, and honestly, it holds lessons for the entire global supply chain.
Okay, let's dive into this with a really great quote from the ICC Paperless Trade Pilot Playbook that perfectly sets the tone for everything we're looking at today. It says, "Pilots are powerful because they lower the barriers to starting. One corridor, one process, or even a single document. That's the secret right there. To modernize a massive, complex, global trade network, you don't just try to flip a switch overnight and pray nothing breaks. It's about taking one small, highly targeted step, proving it works beautifully in the real world, and then scaling it up." And why is starting right now absolutely crucial? Well, because of this number, 80%. The Digital Container Shipping Association, or DCSA, has set a firm, undeniable target to completely end the issuance of paper bills of lading. Within the next 4 years, by 2030, they expect 80% of all global trade to move through electronic bills of lading. So this isn't some distant theoretical future being debated in a boardroom somewhere. It's a rapidly approaching mandate. Countries or companies that don't adapt right now, they seriously risk being completely left behind in the global supply chain.
To understand how Sri Lanka is actively tackling this, here is our roadmap for today. First, we'll look at the paper problem. Second, we'll examine the specifics of the Sri Lanka eBL pilot. Third, we'll map out the actual digital journey of a shipment. Fourth, we'll quantify the strategic wins. And finally, we'll see how this pilot serves as a foundation for scaling up.
All right, moving into Section 1, the paper trade problem. Specifically, we're looking at delays, costs, and compliance risks. If you're involved in international business, you already know the hidden, frustrating nightmare of the current ecosystem. Developing economies in particular rely heavily on physical documents, which creates a massive bottleneck. In the old way of doing things, you're dealing with agonizing physical handling and courier delays. Documents literally have to be printed, signed in wet ink, stuffed into an envelope, and physically flown across the world. And if there's a typo, or if a courier gets delayed, the whole agonizing wait just starts over while cargo sits idle at a port. But in the new standard, you have zero manual handling and instant API exchange. This transition is essential for seamless cross-border trade, entirely eliminating the literal paper trail that slows everything down and replacing it with instant data transmission.
Now let's look at how we actually solve this in Section 2, the Sri Lanka eBL pilot, designed as a low-risk, high-reward catalyst. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly what we meant earlier about starting small. To bypass these entrenched paper delays, Sri Lanka initiated a national priority initiative, but they started with a single, live export transaction. This pilot was incredibly targeted. They focused on one specific corridor, Colombo to Singapore. They used one single document, the Electronic Bill of Lading, and they tested it on a live export transaction utilizing either a letter of credit or documents against payment. Now, why Colombo to Singapore? Well, that specific route has a high, consistent trade volume. The carriers operating there already have strong digital readiness, and the systems in place are fully interoperable with global eBL platforms. It was honestly the perfect testing ground.
But as we know, technology is only half the battle, right? Trade is ultimately about people and trust. The human coordination required here was massive. We've got Sri Lanka Customs and the Central Bank of Sri Lanka working right alongside exporters and commercial banks. Then you add in the carriers and freight forwarders, all co-convened by ICC Sri Lanka and the National Trade Facilitation Committee. This pilot works because all these wildly diverse stakeholders united to create a single cohesive governance layer. They built the trust required to just abandon paper entirely. Next up is Section 3, the digital trade journey, where we'll walk through the 6-step end-to-end data flow. Let's look under the hood to see exactly how a shipment moves from Colombo to Singapore digitally. Think of this as a highly secure digital relay race. Imagine a Sri Lankan tea exporter getting a shipment ready for Singapore. Step 1. The exporter issues the eBL directly from their system. Step 2. Their bank instantly reviews the metadata for compliance. Step 3. The carrier provides their endorsement via a distributed ledger. Step 4.
Customs securely pulls the data for clearance, completely bypassing the wait for a courier. Step 5. The importer receives the verified eBL. And finally, Step 6. The bank handles the foreign exchange settlement. From start to finish, data is handed off perfectly and instantly, without a single piece of physical paper changing hands.
Now you might be wondering, how do all these wildly different systems actually communicate with each other? The answer is an API gateway. Think of an API gateway as a secure digital translator. It enables pure interoperability. It sits right in the integration layer and allows the commercial bank's trade system to instantly and securely talk to the customs digital clearance portal, even if those two systems were built by entirely different software developers using completely different coding languages.
What makes this entire ecosystem work is the robust security built right into every single handshake. Whether transmitting data in JSON or XML formats via REST APIs from an exporter or pushing data to customs, the validation relies on strict digital signatures, hash verification, and exact reference matching. And because the whole shebang is protected by AES 256 encryption, there is total legal and regulatory conformity. You literally never have to worry about a document being intercepted, forged, or altered in transit.
Okay, moving to Section 4, Strategic Wins for Trade, where we measure the real-world impact.
All this amazing tech is perfectly in place, but what does it actually deliver? So the crucial point is this massive figure right here, a 30 to 40% reduction in clearance time at customs and port terminals. By eliminating physical handling and courier delays, trade professionals spend dramatically less time waiting around. Goods move out of ports faster, supply chains become more agile, and terminal congestion practically vanishes. For an exporter, this is an absolute game changer for speed and supply chain agility. And right alongside that incredible speed comes the savings. The pilot demonstrated a 20% reduction in documentation costs. When you have zero manual document handling, you dramatically minimize the chance for human error, typos, discrepancies, and the super costly manual interventions required to fix them. A 20% cost reduction goes straight to the bottom line of businesses, ultimately making the nation's exports way more competitive on the global stage. Beyond just time and money, this brings stronger foreign exchange, or FX, compliance, and predictability, which is a huge win for national financial security. We get improved settlement timelines, meaning businesses get paid sooner and can reinvest their capital faster. And because everything is tracked on immutable ledger records, fraud risk plummets while auditability skyrockets. For a central bank, they get perfectly accurate instant reporting on FX settlements, which vastly improves their economic oversight.
Finally, let's dive into Section 5, Scaling Up for Tomorrow, focusing on building a national digital hub.
The goal of a pilot isn't just to succeed once. It's about transforming a country's competitiveness for decades to come. Let's move to Riyadh and see how this builds a nationwide digital revolution. Step 1 is completing this initial eBL pilot. Step 2 is adding a second corridor, likely expanding to Chennai or Dubai. Step 3 introduces a second digital document, like the electronic certificate of origin. Step 4 integrates all of this into a broader national single window system. And lastly, Step 5 is supporting major legislative reform toward MELTR-aligned legislation, firmly locking in the legal framework for total frictionless digital trade.
The success of the Sri Lanka pilot proves that adopting paperless trade isn't just some fancy tech upgrade, it is a fast, low-risk way to fundamentally modernize an economy. Digital infrastructure is now just as critical as physical ports, and that 2030 mandate to eliminate paper bills of lading, it's right around the corner. Which leaves us with this vital question to think about. Is your trade ecosystem ready for a paperless 2030? The blueprint is here, the technology is proven, and the race to digital trade has definitely already begun. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep looking closely at the data.